Ready with Tony Stewart podcast in partnership with Insurance Nerds. I'm pleased to be joined today by Sam Renick. Sam, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Tony. Thank you for having me. I'm doing Sammy Rific, as we like to say.
Fantastic. Well, I'm glad to have you. So in this episode, we'll be discussing how it's never too early for financial education. Sam is an internationally recognized leader and pioneer in financial literacy. In 2001, Sam founded the S.A.V.E company and co-created children's storybook character Sammy Rabbit to make it easy for anyone to talk to and teach young children about great money habits. Since then, Sam has produced one of the largest libraries in the world of financial literacy resources, including stories and songs like Sammy's Big Dream, Get in the Habit, Save Rainy Day, Lemonade Stand, and more. And all these links and information will be on the show notes. A little bit more about Sam before we dive in. For nearly 2 decades, Sam has delivered his innovative and infectious brand of financial education to more than 250,000 children in 8 countries and 40 states. Sam's also received numerous awards for his innovative work. So Sam, let's get started. How did you get started with what you're doing?
Well, it was all quite accidental, Tony. This is actually my 3rd career path. I spent about 12 years in aerospace on the business side. It was just a great experience for me, and it's really where I learned to develop and take ideas out of our head and turn them into real things like books and characters and stuff like that. I went from the aerospace industry into financial services. Mainly selling mutual funds related to retirement, some related to college saving. And then I was doing a little bit of insurance as well. And the firm I was with was a small boutique independent firm, and they'd have these weekly training sessions on Fridays where they'd bring in professionals from the industry who wanted us to represent their products, and they'd lead a sales training. And I had been doing this for a few years, and one day a gentleman shows up with an Etch-a-Sketch and a bubble blower. And I'm like, okay, what is he up to? What's he going to be teaching us today? And essentially, he was sharing with us that he thought it was a great idea for us to open up college savings accounts and start trying to establish these long-term relationships with families. And that just really got me to thinking, why did I get into saving and investing right out of college with my first professional job? So that was one of the things that prompted me to start investigating, what people now call financial literacy, financial education, financial capability. That, and now I had some experience as a financial services professional, and I had several hundred conversations under my belt with people just like us. And at that time I was in my 30s, and I had mainly what I would describe as a family practice. So people were essentially about my age and some a little older, but there was a theme that was developing in all these conversations. And that theme was essentially people sharing with me their regret and despair for not saving earlier in their lives, or having their parents taught them about the importance of saving and or in investing. And so that, combined with the sales, he was a wholesaler doing his presentation, just made me really start to reflect on, wow, it was quite unusual that I think I started working professionally at 21, and I started putting like maybe 1/3 or 40% of what I was making into various saving and investment programs, including the 401k. And not surprisingly enough, after about 12 years of doing this repetitively, making a habit of it, my pile of savings and investment, it grew. And I thought everybody did this because of the way my father raised me. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, but he was from the Midwest. So he used to talk a lot about something called Midwest common sense.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of Midwest common sense was, you earn here, you spend here. That was
Okay.
the essence of it. And one of the other things that he really ingrained in us was this idea that you can have anything you want if you were willing to work hard enough for it. Now, we had very little. I learned in college we were essentially, hovering around the poverty line. It's a little
Wow.
misleading in the sense that we had everything we needed, like, one pair of jeans for life. We always
Mm-hmm.
had food. We always had food and a place to sleep. And so my father thought, you get that good work ethic, you get an education, you'll be able to do what you want if you want to. And so, that all kicked in. I was not really enthralled with financial services itself. It was somewhat of a disappointing experience for me. But what I
Mm-hmm.
found was thinking about and wanting to educate and share messages with parents and kids, about the importance of building a nest egg, saving and investing so you can make dreams come true. That was something that really resonated with me. So one day I asked myself a question. Tony, I said to myself, if I could only teach a child or an adult one thing related to finances, what would it be? And I thought about that for, maybe a month or 2 months. And I thought, the most important thought that had helped me gain some independence and some security at, 34, 35 was this idea of paying yourself first. And
Mm-hmm.
so, or spending less than you earn, however you like to look at it. I thought, what? I think that's an idea. It's an important idea, and it's one that anyone can take action on. So that kids, even if they're, poor, quote unquote, they could start saving pennies. It's something they can do. They can
Mm-hmm.
put them into a savings bank, a savings jar, an envelope, whatever it is. And I thought, what? And that was my translation. Really, I was like, well, how do you communicate this idea to young kids? Because I think I was concluding it's important to start early, particularly in the environment we were living in back in, say, 1998, even more so today, where kids are being bombarded with messages, from family, from friends, from television, from computers, essentially to spend, spend, spend. And not only
Mm-hmm.
spend what you have, spend more than what you have. Not only do it now, do it right now.
Yeah.
So and so I thought, what? If advertisers think it's important to start shaping kids, not only their thinking, but their feelings, essentially from birth, we need to have those type of messages related to what I would call wealth building, security building, things of that nature. For me, I like to put more of that slant on what people might call quote unquote financial literacy than just doing banking functions and things of that nature. So I think you want to get those ideas in your head. And so two big questions was, how do you translate that message in a way that kids will understand? And then two, what should be a good vehicle for communicating that message? And that's how we kind of came across the message, saving is a great habit, and
Mm-hmm.
Sammy Rabbit. And then from there, we
Okay.
just kept developing that message, wanting to bring it to kids and to parents in a variety of ways. We started with storybooks and the book, It's a Habit, Sammy Rabbit. And then we put it
Mm-hmm.
into message and more stories, and then activities and experiences and things of that nature.
Well, I mean, you hit on so many great points, but I think the most important takeaway, of course, is to spend less than you earn. And, it's such a simple concept that, so many of us have a struggle with. Don't.
Yes, but it is, okay, you hit the nail on the head. It's a simple idea. This is not rocket science. So it's very simple. That is the cornerstone. That is the foundation. So if you master that, there's a good chance you're going to do well. And then it's just a question of how well. And the other component to it is making it a routine. We like to say, make it a habit. And then,
Mm-hmm.
an idea I wish I had come up with, but I'm cheerleading and championing for it, is the one David Bach came up with, and that's to make it automatic. Right?
Yeah.
So look, I'm not any different than anyone. If you put cash in my hands, there's a good chance I'm going to spend it.
Hmm.
One thing we are great as Americans is marketing. So there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
opportunities every day to spend on a lot of great things. So if you can make your what I would call wealth building, security building, some people call it your financial health and wellness. If you can make that a habit and make it automatic, get the money out of your hands or minimize the amount of cash you have immediate access to, and cash in pocket being maybe the most immediate of all, I think the better off you're going to do.
Well, that's great. I know one of the things as an advisor when I worked with clients, I oftentimes was partnering with advisors on working with their clients is that people oftentimes made things more complicated than they needed it to be, and they expected their financial services and products to be complicated. Do you think that maybe that's part of it, is that we have a psychological expectation that something's not good unless there's some complexity to it?
I think that is what I'd call, I guess, a contributing factor. So I think, look, the basics work. So they're going to take you, let's say, if 100% is the finish line, they're going to take you 70 to 80% of the way there. Once you master the basics, and nothing is more basic than spending less than you earn and saving, I think those are what I'll call leading behaviors that they
Hmm.
often will lead you to investing, and then to the, let's say, level 2 or level 3, where maybe some more sophistication, a different level of complexity. It doesn't necessarily have to be overly complex. Then that's where you may want to jump into that, and probably largely you're prepared and ready for that. But if you start with that to begin with, it's probably going to be overwhelming. You may not be able to sustain it. A lot of factors, come in. You want to, I think, here's another this is a simple idea, but this is slightly harder maybe to execute is, look, we're all going to be doing spending. I think the idea is, in my mind, spend smart and spend.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what's a little tricky. Try to align your spending with what it is you really value. What makes that tricky, and this is where I think financial advisors can be really helpful, is for people to figure out what it is they really value. And
Yeah.
often the money is gone before they figure out, oh, what I really valued was a home or whatever it is. Maybe it was a nice experience, but not a lot of chocolate, or whatever it is.
Well, what are some of the concepts maybe that you integrate in the Sammy Rabbit program that financial advisors and insurance agents and the rest of the community could integrate into their working with clients? What do you see as some commonalities?
Okay, well, all the things we're teaching young kids are all the things you would teach adults to begin with. We just try and do it in a slightly different way that engages the kids. Everybody today has a very short attention span. So
Mm.
the 4 basic behaviors I'll call, saving is number 1. That's our top priority. 2 would
Mm-hmm.
be earning, spending smart, and then giving wisely. Those would be the foundation. Then I'd layer on top of that setting goals and making plans. Boy, if you can figure out what it is you really want, you're going to have a great chance of getting it. It may really influence and inform your behavior and how you use your money. That's a little tougher with kids because they want everything. And so that's
Mm-hmm.
why this is one of the reasons why we think start with saving, because saving is one of these behaviors that transcends money. When you start thinking about saving in depth, what you realize is part of what you're teaching kids is how to delay gratification. All right, that's a transferable skill you can use in all areas of life. You learn about goal setting, it does help you to spend smarter because you're delaying some of your spending. So it buys you time to think about what you really want. So there's a lot of benefits, to saving. And then I think, those other four, yeah, sure, you should, you need to earn. You want to have a great earning ethic. And so one of our simple Sammy messages: earning money is fun to do. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's work. Try and find work that you really enjoy that pays. That's going to make work even more fun. And when you spend, don't just spend smart, spend with a purpose. And then you can, that's the beginning message. I mean, there's a lot of building and layering when it comes to spending. In the next level, in my mind, you want to think a little bit. And to me, thinking means comparing and contrasting things. That's a great behavior. And then, give, but not only give, but give wisely, put some thought into that. That's something I think you need to acquire some skills at, particularly in today's environment. There's a lot of giving opportunities. Some are better. Again, if you can align them to what's important to you, you're probably going to generate more satisfaction. And if you're aligning, if you have goals and you make plans, you're probably going to lead a life with more purpose, which is going to be more fulfilling and gratifying to you. So I think these are all ideas, little seeds you can start planting into kids' minds, maybe as early as birth, but certainly somewhere around 3 or 4 years old. And the thing is, one of the big things, Tony, I think adults would be smart to assume is that if we can explain the ideas, kids can grasp them. So don't underestimate kids' abilities to learn. On the other hand, don't expect too much. Okay, they're not financial advisors, but do expect that maybe they can start making associations and having feelings like saving is a fun thing, just like spending. And it's really fun when you have coins in your savings jar and you put it next to your ear and you shake it. That's what saving sounds like, Tony. And that's what building a future feels like. It's like, hey, I'm going somewhere. You know what? This is such a strong subliminal message to send kids to have them make a habit of saving, because it says that you value their future. Their future is so important. We're saving for it, so you can have a great future. And so when you start talking to kids in that term, like, man, wow, maybe I'll save for a day. Now, boy, you've got to build in. You got to be diligent. You got to build in tremendous redundancy, because the forces, the voices, they're out there. Chocolate, Slurpee, Big Mac, Chuck E. Cheese.
Oh yeah,
so
cars.
You want to build in those messages and walls of, they're just doing their jobs, all right. And our jobs as, the guardians of children, if we think, and I'm a person who thinks this, that learning how to use money wisely is important to having health, wealth, and success in life. We need to get some of our own messages into kids' heads, and not only the messages, but we need to bring feeling to it as well. I'm sure you've seen the studies, and this probably is true across the board, so it doesn't just apply to money, but often people don't make decisions based on what's in their financial best interest. They do it based on what they feel. So you've got to have a combination of, thinking and feelings. And this is where habits and making things automatic, you can turn those into big advantages. And the thing about habits is this, Tony, they don't discriminate. All right. And they're very predictable. So we know this: if you read a lot, your knowledge and brain are going to grow. If you exercise daily, we know in advance your health is going to improve. We know if you save, you're going to start building security and wealth. That is predictable, and anyone can do it. Now, they may start in different places. Some people may start in pennies, some people may start in dollars. It doesn't matter. I would contend this, that a person who starts with pennies, eventually they're going to grow to nickels if they're making it a habit, which is going to grow to dimes. And if you're saving pennies and nickels and dimes, that's probably going to affect the way you think about how you spend.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well,
it has this compounding effect.
well, I mean, I know your message is targeted to children, but I keep hearing that this is exactly the same issue that so many adults experience. And I think, do you feel that your work with Sammy Rabbit is going to change how adults interact and break down some of the taboos about money and how money is this crazy thing that I can't understand and I can't grasp, and so I don't want to deal with it? I mean, is that going to help change that mindset?
Absolutely. All right. Let me just say, we get emails and letters from parents all the time saying, this is something I need to learn myself, or because my child is now talking about this or doing it, I'm doing more of it, or I need to seek out a planner or CPA or whatever it is. That was one of the exact points that was a compelling idea at the time to an organization called the Air Force Aid Society. It's one of the first big and important organizations we worked with. I was talking to I believe he's their COO. This was at a conference, and I shared with them. I said, I think at that time, one of the things you're going to find about our program is if we can get the kids energized about money and saving, they'll start talking to their parents, and it will have a whole impact on the family dynamic. And Colonel Delaney, James Delaney, said, I think you may be right. We want to test this idea out with you. And at that time, this was back around 2003. We were just getting started. We had basically what I would describe as a service-based business model. And so what that means is I was going around reading our books, conducting an experience, a 1-hour experience for kids. At that time, we had developed a costume or a character, Sammy the Rabbit. And so I would read to kids, we would sing to kids, and then Sammy the Rabbit and I would do skits with kids, reinforcing these messages. And after we did a few of those experiences for the Air Force Aid Society, they approved essentially what was a contract or a commitment to have us do that for 4 years. And we went to Air Force bases all over the world, primarily in the US, but to England, to Italy, to Turkey, to Japan. And then unbeknownst to me, while we were doing this, every quarter, Colonel Delaney was briefing the Pentagon on our work and the feedback he was getting from the bases. And about, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years into this, I got a call from the Pentagon. Colonel Delaney didn't tell me or anything, so this was just totally out of the blue. And they said, "Is this Sammy the Rabbit?" I said, "Yes, this is Sammy the Rabbit." They're like, "This is the Pentagon." I'm, "What, the Pentagon?" And they said, "We're going to be doing what they called financial readiness campaign and financial readiness days on all military bases, Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force. And it's going to be a whole day of workshops. Most of them are geared for the adult members, but they were going to have programs for the high school students, the middle school students." And they said, "And for the elementary students, we're going to have Sammy the Rabbit. Isn't that right?" And I said, "That's right." And, I met a lot of great people. They had people like Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, and various people, based on whoever was available, leading some of these workshops for our military service members. But we did all of the programming for the young kids. It's probably, one of the greatest things that's happened to me in my entire life, being able to be of service to the people who are, protecting and serving our freedom, and their children who have, very different lives. They're very mobile, moving from place to place, many of them. And so, that's that story. And that was the idea. And then since then, what happens is what I've shared with you is we get these, emails and letters, or maybe it's having conversations that confirm that getting the kids energized in many cases has an impact on the whole family.
Definitely. Well, I can see that. And it's so exciting, just as an aside, to hear the military doing something like that, is because unfortunately service members are so often targeted by financial predators. So it's great that they're getting some, helping build some financial wellness. I mean, it's young people, and so many military members are kids still.
Yes, you hit the nail right on the head. This is why they had those programs. They've advanced them now, and on almost, I think, in fact, probably on every military base, they have these family centers, and a part of these family readiness centers, they offer various services, financial counseling and coaching being one of them. They also have, how to get jobs, post-military things like that. And one of the reasons they have them is the very point you made. Military members in general are young, and they are preyed upon. It's kind of funny. One of the things we noticed, being in a lot of these military towns, you almost know right away when you're in the towns, because there's always certain things there, and like 4 payday lenders is usually one side. We must be in a military town.
Yeah, well, Alameda is where we're, is an old naval town, and there's still a huge Coast Guard presence. So we definitely get that vibe here. So I definitely see, see the same thing.
Yeah, they're kudos and congratulations to them. I think they were maybe one of the first enterprises or entities that really embraced financial education for its members, early. I started roughly around 1999. I'm not sure when the movement started exactly, but maybe in the late 80s, 90s. You had organizations like, NEFI, and maybe there were a few others. So they're still at the forefront relative to where what I'll call the movement has developed, today. And they were already executing programs and realizing that this was an issue, and they were addressing it.
That's great. So, a question for you: how has the internet and digital technology impacted how you're able to spread the word of Sammy Rabbit, and how do you think it's changing the financial literacy conversation?
Well, it's changing a lot. I mean, fintech is a whole big movement. It is the thing that is happening, and it's financial literacy is a part of that, but fintech is much broader than that. It applies to the banking systems, mortgage lending, everything. It cuts across everything. And what it's done, we've changed our business model. We're trying to be more of an internet online type of a company, a provider of resources more than of services. We're still happy to go out and do experiences if people want us to, but what we're really trying to do now more is provide schools, after school programs, military organizations, financial service professionals with resources and strategies so they can disperse those or lead their own experiences. And the internet has made that possible. I've made, hundreds, if not thousands of relationships just like ours. You were commenting, this is our first, well, not in person, but first visual meeting. We've done all of our connection via LinkedIn and emails. And I have to tell you, it's been a boon for me, and it's really helped us spread our message and get our resources out to more people, than I would have imagined, trying to do all of that just in person. And it's opened up enormous doors in terms of the types of people you can access. We've met a lot of wonderful people, CEOs, of companies like S.A.V.E. And when I mean met, I mean digitally, not necessarily video chats, but through emails or LinkedIn connections or Facebook. And they've taken an interest in our work, and they're accessible. So, it's been a big boon. And then it's also been a big, I think, boon, mostly in a good way. It's like everything comes with positives and negatives, but there's been an explosion within financial literacy of people every day. Somebody new, and maybe multiple people new, are offering new ideas, new products. They all seem to be getting better. There isn't any reason today that anyone, anywhere, almost anywhere, if you have access to the internet, that you cannot have access to good financial literacy. All you have to do is click, and it's there.
Definitely. Well, I think though sometimes one of the dangers is separating the good information from the bad information. I mean,
Yes.
people
Okay. So
talk about that.
that let me just say, and I think that is basic. What I'm going to call, this is where you have to be building these basic financial literacy skills. To me, this would come under smart spending, comparing and contrasting, products or services. It's something everyone needs to be capable of doing, whether you're buying groceries or trying to sort out financial literacy. Having said that, there's a lot of good solid financial literacy out there. And so one of the things I think, if you're probably young kids, and when I'm saying young, I don't mean 13, I mean like 3 to 10. Okay.
Wow. Okay.
So somewhere, let's say around 8 or 9 years old, but definitely by 13, what you can start doing is asking your parents. All right. They're probably your number one, for better or worse, they're probably your number one financial coach. Okay. All right. So what you want to be trained to do, I think, is I like to say, compare, contrast, and ask. So you can ask your parents, hey, is this good information or not? And they may or may not know. And if they don't know, maybe they'll ask their advisor if they have one, or maybe they'll ask their neighbor. There's a lot of meetup clubs now. So I think you can ask your teacher. You can get channeled into the right financial literacy fairly quickly. You don't have to be on the wrong path too long. But even if you're on the wrong path, I like the idea that you're looking to sort it out. And at that age, you really can't make too many significant mistakes that aren't reversible. While you're trying to sort out if you're on the right path or not. But I think there's a good chance you're going to get onto the right path fairly quickly.
Well, that's great. One of the things that, I have written about is the suggestion of, with advisors and financial service professionals, is having family financial meetings. Is that a way that advisors and other members of the financial services communities could promote the concept of Sammy Rabbit is through family financial meetings?
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. There's a lot of ways to do it, and that would be one. They can give out the resources to their clients, to their prospects. They can go out into the community, to schools, to after school programs, to Boys and Girls Clubs, to YMCAs. They can get involved as they want. And I think what they're going to find, this has been the general feedback as it relates to Sammy the Rabbit. Sammy the Rabbit is very time efficient. So Sammy the Rabbit, there's different ways to jump into Sammy the Rabbit, but one we often recommend is through one of his stories or one of his workbooks. So we have resources for kids, let's say 3 to 5 in general. Parents and teachers need to determine, where their kids are at. So some kids are ahead, some are behind, some are right, maybe where they should be developmentally. But for the 3 to 5 year olds, we have color and trace books. We're very wealth building oriented and very language oriented. We're all, we want kids to be aware of the terminology and the words. So we have the saving alphabet. So you have all 26 letters in the alphabet, and then we've tried to mix in, various financial words on all of the 26 pages. Kids can trace them, so they're working on their writing skills, and they can color them. So they're learning the words. This is one of the first seeds. So we have the saving alphabet. We have a book just on saving, And then in the saving book, the words come with the sentence. So you might have something like saving is fun or saving is a great habit. So it starts now planting an idea. We have one on earning, one on spending smart, and one on giving wisely. Then when you get into the 5 to 7-year-olds, we have a book and a workbook called It's a Habit, Sammy Rabbit. It's a book you can read, it's a book you can color, and then there's various other activities that you can do along with it. When you get into 7 years and older, or 6 if you're reading that age, we have a book called Sammy's Big Dream. And in Sammy's Big Dream, his big dream is to ride. He has Elon Musk's big dream. He wants to ride on the world's first outer space roller coaster. And so in order to do it, his opportunity is through a class field project. He's going to need $300 to participate. So his parents say, Sammy, if we'll give you $150 if you're able to earn and save the other $150, you can do it. You can go. And so Sammy does that. In fact, he earns and saves a little bit more. And so one of his friends comes up a little bit short. So he gives money to his friend so he can participate also. So there's a giving message in there also. And it turns out Sammy doesn't need to quite earn $150 because, hey, guess what, Tony? He's already been saving. So, it's a little easier to reach your goals or to take advantage of opportunities if you're prepared. And so that's what that book's all about. We've just developed, this is coming out any day now, a program around that book that brings out these various messages besides saving and earning our great habits. It also dives into goal setting, into planning, so you can start building up on these messages, building your kids' financial knowledge and capability. And then on top of all that, this works for any of our programs. We've developed, as you mentioned, one of the largest libraries of songs on money, like Get in the Habit. Let me just give you we sang this song all over the world. Get in the habit. And this is our sign for habit, something you do over and over. Like Sammy Rabbit, saving money all the time. Tony, you can do it. Now get to it. From every dollar, save a dime. So that is just an infectious, contagious, catchy song with just a purposeful message that you can build around. And we have a song book for these 14 songs. We've actually developed 25 and have a list of over 100 more we want to develop.
Wow.
Like S.A.V.E, Lemonade Stand, Rainy Day. We have all those right now. And then we have 10 activities for each one. They reinforce the concepts. They reinforce the language. I was listening to an interview about a month ago, maybe 2 months ago, from a young man. He's 27 or 28. His name's Jeff Cruttenden. Hope I'm pronouncing the last name correctly. But he is the visionary and creator of the Acorns program, which is now part of CNBC's Invest in You initiative. I believe that's the initiative. And he was being interviewed, and he was talking about his dad was an investment banker and talking about being 9 or 10 and listening to his dad make deals on the phone and various things. And I think his dad was one of the founders of, his name's Walter, of E-Trade. He might have been one of the, as they say, founders behind that. But he would invest in a whole variety of companies, including like maybe cartoon or comic companies. And so that kind of appealed to Jeff. So he started picking up some of the vocabulary, the language, things like that. And then he was sharing one of the things his father did was open up a small investment account for him. And he'd say, in 4th grade, he can remember racing home to find out, if his stock went up or down. And then he made the observation, and this really resonated with me. I mean, all of that did as well, but even more so. He was saying when he was in college, he was noticing that kids, even in the finance and economics classes, that didn't seem like they would have $25 or $50 to invest. And that was part of his inspiration for creating Acorns, which is a platform where you can invest, with very, very little money. But he said, I think you get more value out of investing $500 than say a fake 25 million or 10 million, like a lot of these games are structured to do. And for me, that hit the nail right on the nose. All right, that I think they have some value. So I don't want to say that they don't have any value, but I think that real money, having that real statement, that is a game changer. And that's another thing that's different today, is that you can invest in fractional shares, and you can do it at no cost to low cost very easily. And so that can be a very formative learning experience for almost anyone.
Well, that's great. Well, to start wrapping up, do you have a favorite story you can share with us? I mean, you've had so many different experiences. What's your funniest, most interesting story?
Well, now that you said funniest, that throws a little change to it. But I think the most important, what I'll call some of the most important, it's hard for me to single out one, but the work we did with the Air Force and the military that I already went over, that it was just unbelievable. And I want to emphasize the quality of the people I met there and in general has been, made a tremendous impression on my mind, and I'm very grateful for. We did some work with the University of Maryland extension that went over 2 years, that was run by an adjunct professor, Megan O'Neill, that won a national award. She won the national award for this work, but it was around our approach related to making financial education interactive and experiential, and having music and these different elements to it, which at the time was a game changer. And then her peers voting her this national award, that was something that really stands out in my mind. Participating in the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C., 3 years. The Library of Congress Credit Union brought us there to be a part of their table, and that was an extraordinary experience. I'd recommend to anybody to go to that particular book festival. I'll tell you an experience that brought me to tears. This was in a little town in S.A.V.E, Texas. I think there's 1,200 people there. The elementary school, the middle school, the high school are all on the same block. I met a woman named Sharon Pierce. She's from Austin, Texas. I first met her online, and she heard our song "Get in the Habit," and she was the state advisor for high school students, primarily high school students, also some middle school students, part of an organization that's in public school called Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America. And one of the things they have to do is they have to do lead school projects. They're given a menu, like don't do drugs or stop the bullying, whatever it might be. And in Texas at that time, this was, I think, 2007, they had something called Ready, Set, Read. And financial literacy was becoming important, but it wasn't on the menu yet. Since we had a storybook and she was interested in getting the kids to become more financially literate, she said, I think our kids will respond to your approach to financial education. I'm going to put the word out there and see if any of them will adopt it. And several of them did, including 3 ninth grade girls in S.A.V.E, Texas. And one day I got a call from them and they said, Mr. Renick, we'd like you to come to S.A.V.E, Texas and see what we're doing at the elementary school with your resources. And so then Sharon called me and she made arrangements, and S.A.V.E is roughly about 2 hours outside of Austin. And I remember going to Austin and we drove out there for 2 hours. And these girls, once you do your community service project, the way the FCCLA is organized is they have an Olympic style competition afterward, but it's all based on oral reporting. You give a presentation on your project, how you impacted the community, and you start off at the competition starts at the local level. If you win that, you go regional. If you win that, you go statewide. And if you win that, you go national. And so they brought me out just before they were going to go national. They had already won
Wow.
the state title. And then they showed me what their present, this was before we were going to go visit the school. They were bringing in the author, so that was a big thing, but that was going to be the following day. But the day before, they said, may we show you the presentation we're going to be doing at the national competition? And I said, sure. And I started crying because this was something I had never envisioned. High school kids taking our resources and bringing them to life in a similar but different way than how we were doing it. And it just made me so happy and proud of the work that we were doing. So that's a very, memorable experience. And then just last year, this experience that we participated in together, creating something called the first national Dream Big read that Cheryl Garrett, just an icon in financial services, got behind and supported, as did 30 other people, professionals like yourself. This was for me another just a top-notch experience. All the people, just top-notch people who care about their communities, care about kids and families, and wanting to put them on the right track and buying into and supporting our vision. These are some of the top memories, and I'm sure there's a lot of other ones.
Well, yeah, I mean, the work you do touches, so many people, and I think it's so important because people oftentimes, you had a point very early on is to not underestimate what kids can learn and understand, and I think people miss that, is that you have to talk to kids like they're people. I mean, to some degree they're not adults, and of course you have to remember that, but you also have to treat them like they're a person who can understand and have a conversation and make their own decisions, and your conversation will change so much. And I think that's the power of what you're doing with Sammy Rabbit, is you're working with kids in a respectful fashion and not talking down to them. And
we got very fortunate. The first time I went to read, and this was just a trial reading, we hadn't produced our book yet. The principal at the elementary school met with us afterwards, and she is the one who told me just what I shared with you. She said, Sam, one of the biggest mistakes parents and adults make is they underestimate kids' ability to grasp concepts. She said, if you assume that if you're able to explain it, they will be able to grasp it, it will change the whole nature of your relationship with children, your impact, and your ability to educate. And you know what? We followed her advice basically, and I think she's dead on.
That is 100% spot on. Well, to wrap up, where can people learn more about you and what you're doing?
Well, to no surprise, our website is SammyRabbit.com. SammyRabbit.com. That's SammyRabbit.com. We're happy to talk to you. There's a lot of information there, but if you want us to talk with you, just fill out the contact form and we'll get a hold of you. And, in addition to providing the resources and services, we're big champions and advocates for financial literacy and capability and just education and learning in general. So we're happy to share what we've learned, and we're happy to learn what you know and try and serve kids and families.
Yeah, well, that's great. Well, Sam, to wrap up is, first of all, for our listeners, all the links to Sammy Rabbit's website will be on. Fortunately, this is an easy website to remember, and the spelling is simple. Will be in the show notes. But the other thing is, I would like to say I had the honor of participating in Sammy's first big dream read, and I hope there's going to be a second one. But I would encourage all the advisors out there to think about participating in the second annual. Is there going to be a second annual?
Right, it's on the board now. We'll find out. Is it going to be second annual or second biannual? That's
Okay.
the big decision. But we've targeted October, which is I think National Financial Planning Month, as to when we want to pull this off, basically.
Well, I look forward to participating, whether it's annual or biannually. And I thank you so much for joining me today, Sam. It's been a real pleasure.
Oh, thank you, Tony. It's been a pleasure for me, a Sammy Riffic pleasure, as we like to say. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Well, you as well. Signing off. Thank you for listening to the Get Ready with Tony Stewart podcast in partnership with Insurance Nerds, and please be sure to subscribe.